personal protective equipment. Now, we have different requirements at different plants for different types of exposure. And OSHA is very big on this. This is another standard that they look at. First thing is we have to have a written hazard assessment for our key jobs. And that tells us that somebody has looked at all of our key jobs and made a determination of what are the hazards that personal protective equipment could be used to protect our employees. But personal protective equipment, again, is only the third option. The first two options are key. One, engineering controls, that means proper ventilation and vacuuming. Secondly, would be administrative controls, reducing the amount of time an employee may be exposed to a particular hazard, job rotation of employees where necessary. And after those, only after those three, personal protective equipment. That is the last line of defense. We must protect our employees from the hazards such as falling objects, harmful substances, noise exposure, chemical exposure, dust, mist, vapor, fumes in the work area. And employers must use all feasible engineering and work practice controls to eliminate and reduce these hazards. Then we can use personal protective equipment as the third option. As you look on the slide right there, PPE is the last level of control. Engineering controls consist of basically, again, ventilating the area. You know that if we're dealing with hazardous chemicals, it could spill and stuff, using spill control pallets in there. Isolating the areas, isolating chemicals so people aren't exposed to them there. So again, change for employee exposure to the potential hazard, and then eliminate the hazard through engineering controls where necessary. Examples of this here is obviously initial design specifications when we're putting new products in or a new building. Substitute less harmful products, that's a big one right now, and that's happening all over the place. Companies across the board are reducing the hazardous chemicals with less hazardous chemicals. Change a process if necessary, enclose it, isolate the process, some of the things I mentioned earlier. Work practice controls. Employees can change the way they do their jobs and exposure, or we can rotate employees where they think there is a significant potential for overexposure. You don't have to have employees exposed to 8 hours in a particular situation. We can expose them maybe to 4 hours and rotate them through. Again, the hazard can be eliminated with a work practice control method. Some of those can be, if you're cutting dry concrete, such as in the construction industry, instead of just cutting it with a dry saw, you can use a wet method. Again, job rotation and move employees around where we think there may be a hazard. Personal hygiene, housekeeping, maintenance. Yeah, keep the dust swept up on a regular basis. Dust on the floor, anytime somebody walks by, anytime a forklift runs by, dust gets generated into the air. So again, proper housekeeping, keep the areas around our saws and other equipment cleaned up at all times and maintained. Responsibilities for us as employers. Again, assess the workplace for the hazards and develop a written hazard assessment. And we have to have a document called the Certificate of Hazard Assessment, which has to list all the hazards, work activities, personal protective equipment required on the job, and personal protective equipment recommended on the job. We may have areas out there where we're not going to require certain personal protective equipment, but we may recommend it. For example, noise control. We may have done our testing, and I think we have in many cases, and we may not be over the OSHA limit for 8 hours, but we may have short-term areas where you have high exposures, such as sawing, cutting, and sanding, things like that, where workers may be exposed short-term. We're going to recommend in those situations that employees wear hearing protection for those short-term operations. We want to get our employees in accordance to use the personal protective equipment. It doesn't do us any good to do the hazard assessment, to do the training, if our employees aren't wearing the personal protective equipment provided. And employees also have to make sure that they inspect their personal protective equipment and they maintain it in a clean and reliable condition and sanitary condition. Do not leave it set out on the desk and get filthy dirty. I walk into a lot of companies, I see these little dust masks that employees use. They leave them set out, they get filthy dirty. If OSHA walks in and sees that, that's going to be a citation. Those masks have to be clean and sanitary. If they do get dirty or filthy, they need to be replaced. They're called disposable dust masks. And this is different types of PPE: safety glasses, goggles, face shields, Fortunately, we don't require anybody in our operations to wear hard hats, safety shoes, gloves, safety vests. If you got guys working out on construction sites and stuff, they may have to wear the body vest. And again, hearing protection and muffs are available. So these are different types. You know that. Our PPE program, one, includes procedures for selecting, providing, and using PPE. And we as a company are going to select the PPE based on the hazards our employees are exposed to. We're going to make sure we buy and purchase quality products from reliable vendors such as 3M and other companies like that there. We're going to assess the workplace, as we mentioned, and we're going to select the PPE based on that assessment, and we're going to make it available to our employees. Our training for our employees, again, brand new employees and existing employees have to be trained in the following. Why it is necessary? Well, obviously, PPE is necessary to protect our most valuable assets, which is our employees. So we're going to do it to protect our employees, but again, we need to have our employees working with us to protect themselves. How will it protect them? We need to explain that again. Safety glasses, for example, are impact resistant, but they're not good for dust. They're not good for mist or vapors. So they're good for impact. That means if you have a nail fired 6 inches from your eye with a 100 PS air eye gun, those safety glasses will stop that nail. They are pretty impressive. They are impact resistant. They meet the ANSI standard C87 for the hardness of those glasses. Commercial glasses like the ones I have on right now are not impact resistant. So if you got somebody out there wearing prescription glasses, and we have an area that's required mandatory safety glasses, these prescription glasses here will not meet it. You either need to have the employees get the prescription safety glasses, they also have to have the side shield, or you have to get the glasses that fit over these glasses if they're working in an area where it is mandatory. But again, safety glasses do not protect from excessive dust, mist, vapors, or liquids. We would have to have some additional type of protection. And that's what I'm talking about. What are the limitations? Again, safety glasses doesn't protect you from all eye hazards. When and how to wear them, make sure they get fitted properly. Everybody here, when you get a pair of safety glasses, you got to make sure it fits in the nose piece right and fits in behind the ear, because some of these, if you get them wrong and the temple piece is too tight, it will cause headaches here and behind the ear. Now, if you take your glasses off and you rub the temple piece here in the back, most of these are designed that the heat on the plastic here will allow you to move and stretch and bend the temple piece out, so it will not cause restrictive blood flow behind your ear. Also, make sure it fits in the nose area comfortably, that you got the right size. How to identify signs of wear, that's pretty easy. Look at your glasses, they're all scratched up and dirty. If you got a little dust mask, all filthy, dirty. You know, if you got shoes and they're all worn out, the soles are worn out, the leather off the top is falling off, more than likely they need to get replaced. Obviously, how to clean and disinfect. Safety glasses should be washed every day. Go over to the sink, wash them down every day. And once you do that, get yourself a good lens wipe them down thoroughly, and at the end of the day, put them in a safe, dry place. Do not leave them set out on one of the tables. When is the useful life and how is disposed of? Basically, the little mask, if you use one of them, they're good for a day or two. You can throw them away. Disposable hearing protection, same thing. The little earplugs that we provide, those are good basically for a day. At the end of the day, you can throw them away. Safety glasses in normal use, they can last over a long period of time. But again, if you're in an area where you have the possibility of getting these glasses scratched up on a regular basis, you may have to replace them. But again, that's up to us as employees to take a look at it, and when we need to get them replaced, let our supervisors or our managers know. Head protection, good news, we do not require any head protection normally. But if we do have people working over top of us, where there is the possibility of falling objects such as tools, again, if we're working in areas where we can bump our heads against objects such as pipes or beams, and even contact with exposed electrical wiring, then OSHA's going to say some type of protective caps are required, and they fall into several categories. Class A, this is basically your construction type hard hat that you see out there that everybody wears. That is a good cap. It's got to have a good liner inside that fits properly. The bill has to be on the front. It's not allowed to be on the back. I see it all the time where people have it on the back. That bill is designed to protect the front of the face, the forehead, the eyes, the nose. It doesn't do any good if it's turned around backwards. It has good impact resistance, but it is not protective in case of electrical exposure. Class B is for your electrical workers. This here protects those workers from extremely high voltage. They're insulated. So as you see, the electrical contractors, they have to wear that one there. And Class C is just basically bump caps. You see that in the meat industry a lot, where the guys are wearing the little protective caps or little bump caps. They provide minimal protection, but basically for bumping into objects and stuff like that. So again, if we got somebody working overhead, or if we have a driver who goes on a site that requires mandatory head protection, they may have to wear their hard hats on those types of sites. Again, eye protection falls in a number of categories. First one is going to be safety glasses. These have to be impact resistant. They have to meet the standard of Z87. That Z87-1 has to be on the temple piece. There's also a little notation in the corner of the lens that will show you that these glasses are in fact Z87-1, which means they will withstand a nail fired 6 inches from your eye from a 100 PSI eye gun. Pretty amazing protection, but it doesn't protect you from excessive dust, mist, liquid droplets, or vapors. Okay? So again, dust or other fogging products such as metal shavings and sawdust may require us to put a additional goggle on there. And again, goggles come in two types: dust goggles and vapor or mist goggles. So if we got dust, you'd have to put a dust goggle on there. If we have liquid exposures, corrosive gases, vapors, and liquids, we would have to have a splash goggle. And again, we do not have any potentially infectious material that I know of, such as blood or hazardous liquids, unless we're getting involved in a situation where we're helping somebody who has been cut badly and they may be bleeding. Again, you may have some exposure there. Intense light from welding and lasers, we do not do that. And again, criteria, got to protect against the specific hazard based on your exposure. So again, if we have impact, they have to be impact resistant. You have to have the side shield on them, or they have to be the type that wraps around all the way around. Got to be comfortable to wear, does not restrict vision or movement of the head, durable and easy to clean, it disinfect, and does not interfere with the function of other required personal protective equipment. So those are some of the basic requirements that we have to follow when we select appropriate eye protection. Who wears them? The ordinary glasses do not provide that required protection, as I mentioned earlier. These are not impact resistant. A nail will go right through these, and these also may shatter, which means those shards may go right into your eye. Prescription glasses with side shields, protective lenses have to be Z87-1 protected. Goggles, if we have dust, mist, or vapors that fit comfortably over the glasses, those may be additional factors there. Sometimes you get these goggles also have protective lenses built into them today. A number of companies I've worked for have those types of goggles. Here's a good pair of standard safety glasses here. These are pretty easy. They're the wraparound glasses. They fit comfortably. They don't provide any restriction for your peripheral vision. Out here you can see your fingers easily through that there. Very nice. Again, you have the temple pieces that you can rub with your fingers or your hands, heat them up, and they will stretch out and mold out. Again, make sure the nose piece fits in comfortably around there. Here's a good pair of goggles. These are dust goggles that fit tight over the glasses again. So if you have areas of high dust or high impact, lots of particles flying around in the area, you may have to have that on place in addition to the safety glasses. We don't have any lasers in anywhere, so we don't need those there. Face shields, if you're doing heavy metal grinding and some other types of sanding or grinding where you have a lot of particles being thrown up, it says in addition to the safety glasses, we have to provide face protection, standard face shields. A lot of maintenance areas where they're using the little grinders, the bench grinders or handheld grinders, you need to have these face masks. Welding, cutting, and burning, again, you have to have the appropriate welding helmet there with the appropriate lens, minimum of 10, rating up to 12 dark. That way, if somebody is doing any kind of arc welding and stuff like that, they have the appropriate helmet. Also, if you're doing welding, you need to have the fire-resistant jacket or clothing or sleeves, fire-resistant gloves, same time. Here gives you an example of noise exposure. right now, we don't have any areas within any of our operation that we know of that exceeds the OSHA standard of 90 dBA over an 8-hour time-weighted average. We do have some operations that short-term have some high exposure. So we're not making hearing protection mandatory. It is available to you, especially for short-term operations. Good idea to get the hearing protection. Make sure if you're going to use it, fit it properly, get it all the way into the ear tight. Check your hearing protection on a daily basis. At the end of the day, these are disposable, but protect yourself from short-term high noise exposure. But we do not have any areas right now where we have tested that we have long-term 8 hours. But this shows you a little chart here, just some basic tasks. Carpenter work normally, you can see that they're at 89 decibels, so they're right near the standard. Masonry, again, this is the guys out there cutting block. You can see that one there. If they do that on a regular basis, they're over the standard. Framers, well over the standard. You can see forming operations. Sheet metal, yeah, guys work with sheet metal up to 95 and on up there. The higher the decibels, you know that, the less time people can be exposed to that noise level during an 8-hour time-weighted average, and the more important it is to get people into hearing protection that will bring them down below 90 decibels for an 8-hour time-weighted average. You know that. When it's not feasible to reduce the noise level, in certain operations, there's just not any engineering controls that you can do, such as grinding, sanding, you know, that hammering. You're going to have some high noise level with that there. And again, right now, if it's above 90 decibels, it becomes mandatory. If it's above 85, we have to have a hearing conservation program, and we have to do training. We have to provide the hearing protection, and also we have to do annual audiometric tests. But right now, we don't believe we have anything above that area. We are going to be testing, however, on a regular basis. So as we come out and visit our operations, we are going to be bringing a sound level meter with us, and we're going to be testing operations to see what our noise levels are, and if necessary, we'll have a full-scale test done in those areas. When must hearing protection be provided? Again, above 90, it's mandatory. Above 85, it is recommended. Training's recommended, and we have to make sure we're doing audiometric tests. And there's a number of different types of hearing protection available. We have the simple little plugs. We have the plugs with a little string that goes around them. We have the muffs. And then we have the canal cap. So there's different types of hearing protection available. Body protection, we really don't need to do that, thank God. We're not working in a foundry where we have excessive heat. Right now, we don't have a procedure for mandatory steel-toed shoes at most of our locations. Not a bad idea if you got employees handling heavy objects or you got forklift traffic, but we want to make sure employees have good shoes, you know, that's suitable for an industrial work setting. Good leather tops, good anti-slip soles, preferably anti-penetration soles, good traction on it, and preferably steel toes where necessary. You know, and again, when must foot protection be provided? When any of these are present. Heavy objects such as barrels or tools that might roll onto the foot or employee's feet. Sharp objects that can penetrate the soles or spikes. Molten metal, thank God we do not have that. Hot or wet surfaces, especially slippery surfaces that we're talking about here. So you need to have good tread, anti-slip, anti-penetration, good leather uppers, and preferably protective caps for your shoes. And again, this just gives you an example of that, you know, that good pair of safety shoes or a good pair of shoes that has hand protection is necessary. There's not a lot of areas that we require hand protection, but again, good pair of cotton gloves is available. Other types of gloves as necessary out there, but again, we don't have a whole lot of exposures, especially chemical exposures on it. So we do have gloves available. If you need gloves, again, see your warehouse manager. Get the appropriate types of gloves on there, okay? And again, we will provide the gloves as necessary for the types of hazards that you might be exposed to. And again, if you got chemical exposures, you'd have to have the particular type of chemical glove for that particular type of chemical. And there's different types of them out there. Not all of them are suitable for certain types of exposure. Again, the safety data sheet will tell us exactly what type of chemical glove we need. So that's what we want to look at. If we have extremely sharp objects and cause cutting, it's a good idea to have some Kevlar gloves. If you see in here, Kevlar gloves are cut resistant, so if we're dealing with anything that's extremely sharp, anything that causes slashes or anything like that one there, that would be a good idea. You see the one slide up here shows the meat cutters up here. He has the metal glove on the one hand, that's the offhand, and he has the Kevlar on the other. And that's gone more and more requirements in the meat cutting industry because they cut themselves a lot. And again, body protection, fortunately, we don't need a whole lot of body protection. Don't need moon suits, don't need air supplied respirators, don't need special clothing, don't need hard hats, don't need these great big boots and gloves, thank God. You know that. But again, if we had operations like that, OSHA would say we have to do an evaluation. So we don't have that. Basically, a summary of what we just talked about, we as the employer has to assess the workplace to see what kind of hazards we have. We have to provide engineering controls and work practices controls where necessary and where feasible. The magic word is feasible. And also we have to make sure that we are providing the appropriate personal protective equipment for our employees. And we select that personal protective equipment based on the hazards. And we select it from a good quality safety supply company that meets all of the OSHA and ANSI standards and the NIOSH standards. We have NIOSH standards out there. This personal protective equipment has to meet those standards. Have to inform our employees why the PPE. That's why we have this class. We have to make it available for you. We have to ensure that if you have problems with your PPE, we get it replaced. And if you got problems down the line as far as it getting dirty, scratched up, we have replacement available for you. Train our employees on how to use care and use the PPE properly. And then this one here, where required, we have to make it mandatory. That means if we walk out into the plant and the sign on the door says mandatory eye protection beyond this point, everybody's going to have to wear their eye protection. That is required. If OSHA walks in and they see that and they do the evaluation and they say mandatory eye protection and they walk out there, that fine can be up to $12,400. So that's going to be a pretty stiff fine. And if they see multiple violations, they can cite us for each one of those violations. So again, we as a company are going to do everything we can to protect our employees. We have a good hazard communication program. We want to make sure that we're doing the training on a regular basis. We want to make sure we're letting our employees know what they can do to protect themselves. We want to make sure we're available to our employees to make sure that they have information from us, and we want to be a good steward for our employees. And we always, always, always want to do everything we can to protect our most valuable assets, which is our employees, so that they can go home every night to their families and come back tomorrow ready to help our company be successful, grow, and make a profit. Thank you very much for this presentation. Hopefully this is helpful for you. If you have any problems or any recommendations, Nate Reynolds is available immediately. He is our corporate safety manager, and he will be out on a regular basis, and he's immediately available for any questions, any concerns that you may have at any time. Thank you very much, and have a safe day. Appreciate it. All right. Got it?